Okay. Lord be with you.
It's with you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beauty and abundance of your creation. As we gather today, help us to honor the earth in every decision we make. Guide our thoughts and actions so that we may be faithful stewards of the land, water, and all living creatures. May our discussions reflect wisdom, care, and respect of the world you have entrusted to us. Amen.
Amen.
Friends, today we have Beth Remmes. She's the Coastal Outreach and Resilience Coordinator for Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. She brings a lifelong commitment to environmental care and community resilience to her work along Georgia's coast. She's based in Richmond Hill, and Beth supports green teams and faith communities as they take practical, hopeful action to care for creation and strengthen local responses to climate challenges. Beth, thank you so much for being here, and I'm handing this over to you.
Hey, well, thank you all so much for inviting me. Out of curiosity, how many people here have heard of Interfaith Power and Light? Just raise your hand if you've heard of it. Okay, yeah, everyone. How many people know that it was first called Episcopal Power and Light? Yes, that's yeah. Sally Bingham, Reverend Sally Bingham founded it in California in 1998. And we are really honored today. Our Georgia founder, Carol Bartlett, and her husband, Reverend Woody Bartlett, founded it in Georgia in 2003. So I'm part of the Georgia chapter, and Carol is here with us today, my dear friend. So what I thought I'd do today is I would go through kind of I know the focus is partly on sustainability and partly on advocacy. So I'm going to break it up into two sections. I thought I would do some of the sustainability portions first. So that's really going to apply to the whole state of Georgia, which I think will be relevant to all of you. And then we'll take time for questions in the middle of that. And then I'll talk about some of the advocacy, particularly on the coast, if that's interesting. And then we can kind of open that up too. So that is my plan for today. All right, let's see if my slides will share. Here we go. All right, hopefully you can all see that. So I am with Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, and our mission is to inspire and equip communities of faith to organize. That's by creating green teams, finding those other few people who are passionate about creation care at your church or faith community, implement practical climate solutions, and advocate across Georgia on issues of climate change, environmental justice, and community resilience. I thought what I would start out doing is talking about our partnership with Georgia, with Drawdown Georgia, because this really helps drive our practical climate solutions. And I think it's something that if you are thinking about how to communicate this with other groups or how to set priorities, this might be a helpful guide. So Georgia Drawdown represents more than just a roadmap of solutions. It is an expression of our shared spiritual values and action, offering a path to community resilience, environmental justice, and flourishing for all life. So I don't see all of you on the screen, but I imagine many of you have heard of this book by Paul Hawken. So this is a list. Like, we don't need to figure out how to solve climate change and draw down carbon. We know this actually, and this is a great roadmap for it. So what the Drawdown Georgia team, here you can see many of the people. So we have a lot of the universities present, and the Ray C. Anderson Foundation. We're all working to really dig into this and think, what are the most applicable solutions for Georgia? So they analyzed these issues. Okay. And then these are some of the things that they went through, like how relevant is for Georgia. So they took that whole book, that Georgia Drawdown book, and then is this something we have local experience to do? We wanted to find things that were both impactful and possible, and really trying to find, like, on that graph, that balance of the biggest reward and the best for all solutions. Like, we have the knowledge, this will create jobs. Like, what is most likely to get enacted here? And they narrowed it down to these areas. And again, I think this is something that is a great guide that could help faith communities anywhere. It might look a little different based on where you are and what you are all bringing to the table, but this is what we really thought would be helpful for faith communities. So under electricity, what we're really focusing on with our faith communities is the rooftop solar. We don't really do a whole lot of the other part, but unless it comes to advocacy, which we will get into later, but knowing that these are possibilities for Georgia and then figuring out where to plug in. Buildings and materials, certainly recycling and waste management is a big one. As you know, in your facilities, I'm sure that is a lot of money and space there for what gets used and what gets, hopefully recycled and taken away. So kind of like analyzing that. And then the retrofitting and that, and I'll show you later, but we do have a guide for water retrofits. And then we also have subsidies for energy audits and then help people with those sorts of retrofits with grants. Food and agriculture, we work with local composters. That is a big one. So we're not sending that to landfill. Hopefully we are keeping it on site in some faith communities, especially ones who might have a community garden or a good place to have compost, or again, working with a local partner, reducing food waste, and then suggesting things for green teams like meatless Mondays or vegetarian and vegan potlucks. Land sink. So this comes into our rewilding program under planting trees is a big part of this area. And then later we'll talk a little bit more about the advocacy, and that's about the protection and not so much forest management, but a little bit when that comes up in the legislature. And then lastly, transportation. So where we really plug into this is we can help faith communities get EV chargers if that's something that they're interested in. Okay, so scroll this down. If my book, okay, let's see. Okay, so again, here are some reasons, what does a megaton of carbon reduction look like? So talking about rooftop solar, we have a great organization, Georgia, called Georgia Bright. Thankfully, they are found other sources of funding and they are starting back up shortly. So we can do it both on a facility that looks like a leasing program, and then we can also help homeowners learn about that program through the green teams and the pulpits and outreach at faith communities. Then talks about the importance of composting, and then also, what if we did things other than just drive our cars? What if we did supported more biking, things like that. Okay, so again, we are really trying to focus on things that are positive, that will positively impact the communities, and looking at all the co-benefits as possible. So thinking about equity and health and economy. So for example, when we think about rewilding and planting trees, there are databases where you can look at tree equity. We've all heard of heat islands, and certainly urban areas are more prone to that. And unfortunately, of course, lower income areas generally have less trees. So we can actually direct resources to those locations to help balance that out. As people of faith, we affirm that true justice for creation must address the environmental injustices that harm our neighbors and communities, especially the most vulnerable. So, we are looking at dismantling systems of injustice. We are called to challenge and transform the systems that perpetuate environmental harm, injustice, and climate change. As people of faith, we recognize that the cost of action and inaction carries value far beyond dollars and cents. Loving God, creation, and our neighbors compels us to act. We must engage in reshaping local and state policies to build a just and sustainable future for all. So that's really what is driving this. Again, those co-benefits. We're not just looking to put solar, we're thinking, okay, well, how do we make solar affordable? How do we give money back to these faith communities through the solar program, the money they save that can then go for more of their community outreach? How can we help low-income residents access the leasing program for solar, which will guarantee to save them money and help lessen that energy burden here in Georgia. So again, and our website is gipple.org. And if you have any specific questions about how this works for us or with your current IPL, feel free to share this. But we do have a subsidized energy audit program. Then once a year after they've had that program, they can apply for grants, for matching grants to do like whether it's fixing lights to LED or installing programmable thermostats, weatherization, things like that. We also do the solar assessments, and then we help them do the research for electrical vehicle charging stations if that's something that they are interested in. And this resource is free to anyone. You don't have to be in Georgia or part of GIPL for this. You can go to our website, gipl.org, under programs, and you will see the WaterWise program, and you can download the guide. And these are things like installing aerators, rain barrels, low flow toilets. Like what we found, we were doing water audits too, and then we found like we're almost always suggesting the same thing. So we thought it would make it more accessible to just make a guide, a free guide for people to download if they are interested in it. These are some of the things that I've talked about. When we do events, we really try to practice what we preach and have zero waste events. So we're using reusable when possible. When we can't, we use compostable and work with organizations for us to make sure that it makes its way to the soil. A rewilding program, and then Carol is part of our Four Directions Fund too. So that's just sometimes like it's just a little bit of a hurdle. Sometimes like for example, a community will want to do like a pollinator garden, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe it's only $300, but like, how do we raise that? So this just kind of helps overcome that small barrier to getting a project started. And then individual actions. Hopefully what we are demonstrating at the church, then we are also giving people the tools to do at home and inspiring them to do that there as well. So looking at home energy audits, looking to see if they are a good candidate for solar, making sure they're recycling and know what they can recycle and the things that they can't, connecting them with an agency in Atlanta. There's one called Charm. But otherwise, a lot of times there's like hard to recycle events throughout the year. So you have to find those. Composting, again, alternative transportation, ideas, sustainable landscaping, and meatless meals. And then just putting it all together. And like, this is what is so great about Georgia Drawdown too, is it really does the math and really looks at like, this is what it could add up to. If this is not just something that, we think is important, but there's actually statistics to back it. Okay, and then the state actions, that last one, I've alluded to a little bit, and we'll talk about it more specifically, what it looks like on the coast. But of the things that I've mentioned, if it's working for you, and it's working for your faith community, how else can we talk to our elected officials about what does that look like in your town? Could your town go solar? Could your school go solar? Thinking of how to keep broadening and widening those circles of your influence. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and give you a break from looking at the screen and listening to me and give you a chance if you have any questions or if you think this is relevant to you or it's not relevant. So I just want to just open it up for a few minutes. Or even like listening to that, like, is there one thing that you heard that you're like, oh, we're not doing that, but I think we could?
Greg, did you have a question?
Hey, Beth, I have a question
Yeah.
how it's received when you propose that people start eating plant-based diets. How is that
That's a good
received?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what generally, how I've seen it work the most, and it's so I work as a liaison with the green team. So generally, it's not me going into a congregation who does not know me, like on a Sunday and telling everyone in the congregation, but working with their green teams on like a calendar of events. So for example, one of the green teams I work with decided for Earth Day, they wanted to host a vegan potluck. And they printed out little recipes and everything. And then they also had like how much energy it saves. And so after the Sunday Earth Day service, they invited everyone to join them and have that. And people were like really surprised that like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know like vegan cream cheese existed. So it was, they made it fun and enjoyable and they had the recipes to share. So we try to do it in like an inviting way, more so than, chastising, and include the recipes. But it is a sensitive topic for sure. And and I think, I will hear some people say, well, I actually really need to eat such and such. I feel better that way. And bless you. Like, that's great. Yeah, good
So
question.
Joe has a question. Hands up.
Yeah. Hi, Beth. I just want to know, are you familiar with the eco-region networks from the Episcopal Church? Georgia is part of there's a fairly recently formed Carolinas and Georgia eco-region network.
Oh, no, I would love that information. I know,
Yes, so we should probably connect. I'm part of the team that'll be working on distributing grants. I mean, there's a lot of money. There's like, I think each region is going to end up with about $20,000 worth of grant money. So it's obviously for the churches in those regions and partners. So you don't have to be a part of an Episcopal church to partake in this. And so anyway, so I think we should connect. Yeah, you should. I can
yeah.
give you information about them, and it's
Thank
just
you.
kind of getting underway, at least in the Carolinas and Georgia network. So maybe we can do some work together.
I would love that. I put my email in the chat, and I know the Episcopal Diocese regional meeting is in early November in Brunswick, and I'm planning to be there, so we can coordinate. And if there's anything you want me to share there, or if we get to meet in person there, I am planning to attend.
Yeah, yeah. So the idea is that all of these issues go way beyond parish boundaries or diocesan boundaries or even state boundaries. Right? There are more ecologically defined systems, and the lines
Right.
have been drawn around there. So yeah, so it's
I
good.
love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I put my email in the chat, so yeah, I would love to hear from you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So we have
Any
another
other?
question. We do.
Yeah,
We have a question from Richard, which, by the way, you're going to want to speak with him about ecoregions as well.
great.
So you might set up a meeting. Uh, I'll leave you to that. But anyway, Richard's question is, how do you serve congregations that may have one or two green champions instead of a full team?
Yeah. That's a really great question, and it definitely happens. I will say what we do. This is a very timely question, because this weekend we are having a Green Team Summit here on the coast. We also have one in Atlanta, every year, generally like February-ish. And that is where we invite all the green teams or people interested to come and join. So those two people now feel like they are part of a larger community, and they are. So those two people might join with these two people and these green team of three people, and now all of a sudden they have a little network. So what that looks like here on the coast too is we try to do some events together. So if they're cleanups, we all let each other know if there's tree planting. So again, instead of those two people maybe feeling isolated or trying to continually to come up with things just themselves, we really try to work in like small regional coalitions, to join forces.
That's great. So I'm going to invite those of you who have the information on the eco regions that want to talk to Beth. Put your email in or invite her to conversation. Put your email in the chat so that she can have that too. Does anyone else have any questions? That was good.
Okay, so I think if it's okay, and if you think of something later, we'll have more of a chance to talk at the end, but I will move to the advocacy piece, and I think there's actually some good lessons in this that will likely apply to your work as well. So let's get back to my PowerPoint here. Okay. All right. So the first one I want to talk about is a region called the Blake Plateau. I would be surprised if people have heard of this. It is a fairly new discovery. It is a deep sea coral reef off the coast of a little bit of North Carolina, but mostly South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Um, it is one of the largest known deep sea coral reefs in the world. I mean, there's a lot of the ocean unexplored, but of what we know, this is likely the largest one. And these little areas here are called coral neighborhoods. This area is important because it's really a big part of the nutrient system cycling. So it pushes food nutrients back up into the Gulf Stream and helps support our fisheries and the general health of the ocean. What is really interesting about this project is that thankfully it is protected right now. It is for, I think, about till 2030, 2027. No, 2030. And so there nothing is imminent, which is a different tactic than we normally take for environmental advocacy, right? Like we're like, oh wait, where are the bulldozers? Like we need to show up. So what's really great about this project is we're actually getting to be proactive. We are in coalition with a number of environmental nonprofits. It's spearheaded by the NRDC. And so there's great videos if you're curious about deep sea coral reefs. But it's really kind of a change in tactic to some of our organizing to try to get ahead of possible exploration or mining. And do put some long-term protections in place ahead of time. So it's kind of a sea change for how we are doing some environmental advocacy work. Where we stand with that is it seems like working with NOAA and having this part of the sanctuary and the 30 by 30 plan for ocean protection. If NOAA would considering expanding Gray's Reef, which is already down kind of near Cumberland Island in Georgia, and at least including some of these neighborhoods as part of the protected region, that would go a long way and help kind of stabilizing this area and warding off any future exploration. So they have agreed to consider it, which doesn't sound big, but it took a lot of work just to even get to that point. And then likely what we'll be doing in the next year or so is encouraging people of faith to show up for the public comments sessions and just talk about why it is important to protect these, especially from people of faith and the unknown, right? There's a lot that can be said about we might not even see this, but we know it's important and we love it and we're protecting it anyway. So having that faith. So that's one. Another one we're working on the coast is working on the North Atlantic right whale protection. And I have good news. We had 23 new calves this year. That's like a record in quite a long time. There's only maybe 70 reproductive females. So to get that many calves in 1 year is a great, great story. And it's so wonderful. Like people love the North Atlantic right whale. They do sweet things like have baby showers and very creative responses to how to raise awareness and raise funds for protection. And it's also kind of a lesson in working together. So down here in the South, we don't have as many of the gear with the ropes. That's more of like the lobster traps up in the north. Here it's more like the vessel speed limits. So District 1 is Buddy Carter for the House. He won't be in office next year, but he's generally not an environmental advocate. We don't generally get a lot of support with him, but some organizations like the Georgia Conservancy and others were basically petitioning him. They knew he probably wouldn't back slower speed limits, but they did give a significant amount of money for automatic identification monitoring systems. So at the very least, we can help these vessels communicate with each other if there is a spotting, like to market and let other people know. And then there's also some citizen science apps where they can, on the apps like Mark, where they've been seen. So just helping boaters at least be more aware that way. So not not just taking no for an answer and trying to find other creative ways to protect this species. A few more. So I can't really see all of your hands, but we're really lucky to live near the largest blackwater swamp in the United States, the Okefenokee, which means land of the trembling earth. It has been for years under threat of mining. It seems like, we think it gets rid of with DuPont and then it pops back up again with Twin Pines. And what they're mining for is something called titanium dioxide, which is if you notice your bright white toothpaste, that's what makes it white, or the little M's on M&Ms. It's like it's a whitening agent. And that's what they want to drill for at the edge of the swamp. And the swamp is really shallow. It's vertically fed, which means it's mostly rainwater. And it's kind of shaped like a bathtub. So they want to mine on Trail Ridge, which is the highest point and kind of again like the side of the bathtub. So, and the mining company itself that was in there had a lot of violations. So we didn't really trust them to not accidentally drain the swamp and, putting in jeopardy, the hundreds of species that depend on it. So this has been a fight for a long time. We have introduced a lot of legislation in the state to put a moratorium on drilling. I mean, at least 4 years, if not more, we've been working on it. Stalled it, stalled it, stalled it. Well, this is the lesson in that. So again, here's the map of it, what I was talking about. So the trail ridge is over here. So we stalled it enough that Twin Pines, thousands and thousands of comments were submitted to the EPDs, but that they had to consider before giving the permits. Meanwhile, the company's sitting there within their test site, not being able to do a whole lot, losing a lot of money in the process, and probably all the legal expenses that they've faced with us fighting this. Delayed it, delayed it, delayed it. And then all these, in the meantime, big funders with people with a lot more money than our nonprofit organizations got together, did some land conservancy work, and were able to purchase part of that swamp where they had wanted to mine. Now, Twin Pines was only susceptible to that because we had been, holding them off for months and they were losing money. So the advocacy for it didn't go exactly like we expected. Like we just wanted a moratorium, but that slow, committed work created the opportunities for another organization to come up with other solutions, buy them out, and get rid of that threat for right now. Also related to that, the Okefenokee is Georgia's first UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was just approved. They just announced it like a week or two ago. So, an area that folks in Waycross are not very prosperous, and unfortunately that makes them susceptible. Promises of jobs, which mining generally doesn't really create a whole lot of, but it makes them susceptible for those sorts of industries to come in. Now they have really a chance. They expect that this designation will at least double the tourism dollars coming, which was already the biggest amount of money coming into the area. So really hoping that the community benefits as well as the swamp. And then lastly, and I'll just end here, and this might be a conversation in and of itself. One of the big things we are working on, keeping an eye on, I feel like this is going to actually be a lot of my time these days, is data centers. I went to an open house 2 weeks ago in Effingham County, which is just a little west of Chatham County where Savannah is. OpenAI is proposing a $20 billion data center. I don't even know what 20 billion, that just is inconceivable to me. And I know like the topic of this was like clean water and clean air and energy. And if you're interested in data centers, I will have a lot of resources to send you if that's something that you're working on. But basically data centers do use up a lot of water because they're like, think of it like your car radiator times like 20 billion. And they're continually cooling all the equipment. They are proposing a closed loop system, which will help tremendously, but it's still, at least 30,000 gallons a day, and we'll have coolant in it that will need to be discharged, and who's overseeing that, and also who's really monitoring what happens if they use more than that. So there's a lot of questions around that. And then the backup energy. Well, the energy that they're planning to use will be from the methane gas pipeline that ratepayers will, like, basically we will be paying for that, corporate welfare and subsidies. And then, so that that's not bad enough, all those emissions, then the backup is usually a diesel generators, which again is extremely toxic, polluting for the area, and oftentimes very noisy too, and they are not good neighbors. So this is something we are working a lot on. And again, just like I was saying about some of the other issues, having voices of faith in the room talking to elected officials is very powerful, especially here in the South. They really, they act a little different when you say I'm coming in with an Episcopal team or a Presbyterian team than saying I'm with the Sierra Club. Like, they're just more open to listening. And similarly, I think we are better messengers in some ways because we're going in there talking about, love of creation, love of community, love of people. We're not jumping to the no, you're terrible right away. Like, we're really trying to bring a different voice into these conversations. So so I'll kind of just stop there, but those are some of the big advocacy things we are working on where I am. I'll just say, as an organization, we are also working on biomass in South Georgia with, cutting down forests and turning them into pellets that they generally ship overseas, which does not make sense. And PFAS in the water. And we don't do this alone. We do this in coalition with many other groups. And I think that's key. Very rarely are we ever doing anything by ourselves. We're a big part of the Georgia Water Coalition and other groups working on, and like the data center, I'm part of a coalition working on that. So we don't do this alone, but we are very much a respected and trusted voice in the room, and really grateful to be doing this work and giving people an outlet who want to do something. And like you said, maybe they're one or two people in their community and they really, they're not going to move on solar anytime soon. Here's another way to participate. So, so now I'll just kind of open it back up to questions and things, or comments.
I'm looking through the comments, the chat, to see if anybody had any questions.
And if not, like, I'd love to hear what you're working on, or like what some of the biggest issues are for you too, or if you want to, or we can brainstorm something.
I think I will call Lella. Lella, let me put you on the spot here, I guess, a little bit. About what you'd said is something about, oh, what did you say anyway? It was so profound. I'll never forget it. Let's see. You can actually do it another. We got got three diocesan Christian care commissions together to agree on an approach. Oh, yeah, about the way you can work with the ecoregions a bit.
Well, my point was that you don't have to wait for the bishops to volunteer you to do it. You can. What we did is our bishop said, "Hey, I keep hearing about this ecoregion thing. Are y'all interested?" So I went to the commission in Central Gulf Coast and I said, "Are y'all interested?" And to my surprise, they were. So, because of my work with Province 4 and so on, I knew the commissions in Mississippi and Louisiana. So, we as commission people got together and talked to each other and came up with a plan, but we kept our bishops informed the whole time. But they didn't really provide us direction. They were just there, but they knew. And then when we came to, well, we can do this, we approached the bishops and said, "We'd like you to write a letter." And they were more than happy to. So, yeah, it's a little different than the bishops all talking and then designating you're going to do this
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
And that's an application of the very important adage, bring solutions to your bishops, not problems. So they're far more willing to sign on to something that's already being built than to be tasked with building it.
But don't
So
blindside them. Let them know what you're
yeah,
doing the whole
certainly
time.
that,
But
which is
yeah,
not, yeah, blindsiding
bishops
is
don't
not
like
bringing
that.
solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing you said about you can participate in things outside of your ecoregion.
Well, we approached the dioceses in we're on the Gulf Coast, and so ours is the watersheds of the Gulf Coast, and so it's everything that has any water body, which covers about a third to a half of the U.S. So if you have a water body that empties into the Gulf, then you could be a part of our ecoregion. So we went to West Texas because that includes Corpus Christi, oddly. And because they're right on the water, and they said, well, we're already talking to the grasslands people. And so we checked, and they said, yeah, because of the big geographic differences in the dioceses, sometimes you may have part of your diocese working with one ecoregion and part working, because Corpus Christi doesn't care anything about the grasslands problems. They're worried about water. And so, what I was posting to Beth is that if you end up working, it makes sense that you all, because your coastal area is on the Atlantic, but your Okefenokee work definitely affects what goes on in the Gulf Coast, in the Gulf of Mexico. So you could conceivably work with both ecoregions.
Yeah,
And Richard, in answer to your question, who we bring problems to, I would say the answer is to whoever is already on your doorstep who cares as you do, and you begin to build something constructive to bring to a leader who's already, the assumption about bishops is that they are already up to their necks in busyness and problems. Stacking another one on them is not what they will respond quickly to. However, bringing energy and a solution, they do respond quickly to. So it's just practicality, I guess. But Richard, you also asked another question, right? Do you cooperate with other IPL groups?
That was Christopher that asked about who they bring the problems to.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Christopher. Oh, sorry about that. I was
It's
reading
okay.
Richard from one to the next,
Okay.
but yeah.
That's okay.
So I'll maybe answer both of those. So sometimes an easy way to start with leadership is the low-hanging fruit. If you think they wouldn't mind having their name on something, there are a lot of petitions, especially like we do very targeted letters. Like for the Okefenokee, we had about, I don't know, at least 50, if not more, just leaders of faith groups of different churches and denominations sign on about protecting the sacred waters of the Okefenokee that went to the governor, the speaker, and some of the committees. So working with groups who are doing that, they're always they're always looking for people to sign on to that. So if you think your leadership would be open to that, that's a kind of low-hanging fruit. Another way is like an op-ed. And like you were saying, they have a lot on their plate, but if you have like a draft or something you might want to work on, like mostly done that you think that they would want to put their name on, that might be another way as a congregation to speak out and be a voice for whatever you're working on. As far as working with other IPLs, yes. It's one of my projects that I really love. I'm going to see if I can share. Like, I'm just going to see if I can do this. Let's see. Okay, you can hopefully see that. Yeah. So we have a Resilience Hub program. And if you ever want to talk about this, one time I will. But we are working on this with many other IPLs. California has led the way. Gregory's done an amazing job out there. We are working on it. Minnesota is doing it, kind of a different tactic, and then some of the faith and place groups. But this is a way to have our faith communities be a trusted hub. It's not necessarily a shelter. What it really is a space to build connection and preparedness. You're welcome to explore this more on our site. Again, this is under programs, Resilience Hub, and then we also have the guide that you can download. But we are working really closely with faith teams on that. Also, Deb Renshaw and her book. She's doing a new book on resiliency. And I'm really proud to be part of a chapter in that, our work at Gipple. So yes, we are definitely working. And I know our executive director, Cody Nord, works closely with Brian at Faith and Place as well. And even just things like, I know they went there for a week or so and got some great ideas about how to run our staff meeting in a better way. So yeah, there is a lot of collaboration for sure. think I answered
And then
question.
Rich,
Yeah, but if
I was
not,
just
let me
going to say,
know.
um, did Richard, did you want to talk to us? I know that you are listening, but the question was resilience is a very interesting concept to me. Illinois is rolling out additional battery subsidies. So we went to watch the space. It's a good addition to solar geothermal. And
Yeah,
then,
so I'll talk about that just a bit more for another minute. So there's a lot of groups coming to resilience in different ways. And, the municipalities are going to do it in their way, Red Cross are going to do it their way. What I think our IPL networks, our special niche in this area is that we have a really holistic approach. So we are saying we have all these programs that we already do on saving energy, having solar, having more sustainable grounds, better water use. So we're already doing these things and modeling what resilience actually looks like. And then now we're adding that resilience layer. And again, it really is based on preparedness. When I do the presentation, I always talk about the adaptive cycle, and that's kind of what inspired this work for me. And we know that, like think of a forest, or the emerging meadows that turn into the forest. So you get the high growth phase, then all the resources become very constricted, and they start moving less. And then we have a disruption, generally in a forest, that's a fire. And then what comes back on the other side of that are the seeds that were already in the soil. So thinking about that in our community and knowing, especially with where I'm in Costa, we know disruptions are inevitable. What are those seeds we want to be planting now with people for connection and preparedness that will help them not only bounce back, but maybe bounce forward after disruption? Like, what can we do? And so I think some of that's preparedness workshops, and that's going to look different in different communities depending on what the needs are. Maybe it's insurance, maybe it is food security, maybe it's a to-go bag. So you're going to, talk with your community and see, and it will certainly start with your congregation, but it's an opportunity to open your doors wider to the surrounding community, and have more kind of like energy and life. I mean, I know some places are really struggling since COVID to get people back in the building. So this is a way to do that. When you look at like the when people survive disasters, like the biggest indicator is social cohesion, and we are so good at that already in our faith communities. So like we are a natural place for people to look to, for resiliency, social and spiritual. So you can tell I'm kind of passionate about this project, but I do think it's a way that we can all participate. And maybe it's a easier sell than like we're going green or whatever. If you're talking about in terms of resilience, sometimes that's like maybe people understand that or will say yes to that more than just for an environmental reason. And yes, the battery subsidies, we're figuring out ways all the time to make this more affordable. So, and I know the other IPLs are as well.
nice. Does anyone have, I'm
I
sorry,
see
go ahead,
Jan's
Jan.
hand up.
I have a quick question. You put up that Resilience Hub screen very quickly. Is that under the general IPL website, or where is it found? I didn't have a time enough to
Oh yeah,
click
no
on it.
problem. Thank you for asking. It's on our GIPL website. I just put it in the chat. So it's gipl.org, and then it's resilience, /resilience. So if you're on the GIPL website, it's under programs, or you can just take this link I put in the chat. It'll bring you directly to it. And again, like our water guide, there is a downloadable format that if that's easier to read. You got it. Good.
Anyone else? I was really excited about hearing about your work on the reef and about the calves that were born. That was just, I just love that. So I
I
was
know
really
there was
excited
some
about that.
good news.
I know,
I'm
I
so happy to
know.
give some good news.
Yeah, kind of speaking of that, I guess, Beth, now that if others aren't asking questions, how long have you been in the intersection of environmental and faith work?
Um, Good question. Well, I It feels like kind of my whole life, and so far as like this has absolutely felt like a calling of mine since I can remember. I growing up, and my prayers would be like, what am I supposed to do in this world? Or like, where's meaning for me? And it was always kind of pointed back to environmental work. I will say that it became maybe a little more formal. I'm a facilitator for a body of work called The Work That Reconnects. And if you might be familiar with some of Joanna Macy's work,
Hmm.
I started that in 2007, and she's her work is a really good job of like coming not just from the head space, but also from the heart space and really framing it as like, what is our calling? Like, what is ours to do in the world? So I think that really that worked helped me bridge the gap. And then I volunteered for GIPL for a number of years and I was on the board. And now I've been in this position for 3 years. So I would say my relationship with GIPL has probably been, I don't know, close to 8 to 10 years, likely. And Carol, who I know she had another appointment, had to drop off, but she is amazing. She's a dear friend in the Atlanta area. And again, she and her husband, sorry, Gable, but we've had so many of these conversations over the years about this work and how our hearts are doing in it.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to ask is really, so you've been watching this, you're noticing trends, you're noticing new points or old points of energy, you're noticing places where it may be retreating or advancing. What do you see? What's the maybe the points of hope? Maybe that's a good way to do it. Richard asked a similar question, is there some edge out there in the evangelicals that is actually hopeful, or are we in a pitched battle in the moment, or even in a retreat?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I'll answer this a few ways. I was at an adaptation conference earlier this year, and they said, "What does it feel like to be doing adaptation work?" And like the first thing that hit me real hard was like, it feels like failure. Like I've been working on the other side of this for so long, so that we didn't need to be talking about like what it looks like to have to adapt to rising sea levels and hotter temperatures and all of this. But what I also realize is for so much of my work, um, maybe not the last 8 years or so, but most of my life, it was really focused on ecosystems. Like it was focused on trees and water and, getting tops blown off mountains. Like it was really focused on that. And I have to say, as things have gotten more dire, now it's really also about the people. And then there's something beautiful in that too, because A, we are nature as well. And there's something really meaningful about seeing that now as part of the mission and part of the solution. There's a saying in permaculture, the problem's the solution. I know we have a farmer on here. You probably know that. So, they talk about it in terms of like, it's not abundance of slugs, you have a deficiency. So it's like, how are we always enriching the system? So how the bad thing is we are absolutely at a convergence of crises. The good thing is it's affecting everyone. So we might need different language, like when we talk to the evangelical network, but there are many more ways to like intersect and find partners. The evangelicals, I find them like Wild Goose is going to have some people there. I really try to seek them out who do evangelical and find that like how they will talk about environment again, bringing the people in and talking about how do we care for the people. That's going to resonate probably better than you know what if look for, alternate renewable energy or something. So again, it's a convergence of crises, but it just means more people are hearing the message and more people are paying attention. And I think there is something to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're more hopeful, or is that not actually right?
Um, hope is a verb, I guess I'm gonna say. So I keep doing this work. All I can say is the people I love most in the world are the people who do this work. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't spend my life any other way. So if it works out that it doesn't work, like I don't know. I mean, I have to have a little bit of non-attachment to the result in order to do it because like there are a lot of losses on the way, but like just seeing like that Okefenokee work, for example, like it looked like we lost every single legislative session for years. And then all of a sudden, this was all been happening in the background to be a UNESCO site. Like that's amazing. So I think like what I would say, like hope for me is like just kind of like being open to the unknown, like be open to the mystery of it and see and knowing that I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna turn out. And like maybe there's a gift in that.
Yeah. Wise words.
Thank you. I never know what's gonna come out sometimes, so well, I know
Well,
I've
we're
got
at
you to
the
2 o'clock, so thank
yeah,
you.
we're at the top of the hour. We're just getting started now, but yeah, we're at the top of
To
it.
be continued.
Yes, we continue.
Yes, we would love to have you come back in a bit uh, and join us again, maybe after the new year. That would be great.
Sure.
See what's happening, see how we've all moved, and what's moving forward for some of us in our own ministries. And it would be great. Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate your time, and it was a
Thank
pleasure to meet you and hear what you had to say. I think everyone is better for it. What say you?
you.
Go now in peace to love and serve the Lord in all creation.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
our recording will be available on our website. And I believe everybody has the Province 5 website. They should have it. You should all be members of our newsletter as well. Heather just posted that too. So we'll make sure, Beth, that you get a copy of that as well so that you
Thank
can get
you.
those email addresses. And I look forward to um, future relations. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out if you have questions. So thank you.